Anyways, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get the show started. My name's Steve Hoffa, and this is the Standing Still Podcast. We're glad to have you, that's for sure. I've got a guy on the show that I literally met like 5 minutes ago. Kind of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend kind of thing.
It's a small world.
Dude, it for sure is. But anyways, Bradley Adams is in on show, in the studio. Good dude, and he loves motorcycles, maybe even more than me, which is a big thing to say. He's made it into a career, which he's that guy.
You make it sound really good, which it is.
I literally just talk people up. That's all. I'm trying to get more companies to sign on, but they haven't yet. But no, for sure. You're the kid that grew up playing t-ball and then went into the MLB. Maybe like a hair lower, but you
know what?
The childhood hobby has become your job.
Yes.
And I think everybody can, like for me, I'm an electrician, and I tell people that, and they don't think, oh, you're really passionate about electricity. I have to tell them, like, I
love light switches.
It's a solid job, and, it pays the bills and blah, blah, blah. Yep. Where when you tell people, oh, I'm a journalist or I work in media for the motorcycle industry, they immediately go, oh, he loves motorcycles.
Yeah.
You don't fall into that position. So I'm really excited. Was it a family thing? How'd you get into motorcycles, or was it your own deal?
No, so it was a passion passed down through my dad. Okay. So my dad, an amazing human being, very passionate individual. He fell for motorcycles. Probably he got started into motorcycles a little bit late. He was a car guy growing up, going to the drag strip, stuff like that, building cars. And he got into motorcycles probably around early 20s or something like that.
Yeah,
so
late bloomer for sure.
Yeah, and he kind of graduated through the ranks of, he actually grew up some riding around here. Like he would go up into Turnbull, and it was actually a pretty good scene back in the day of people riding motorcycles around this area. And he ended up helping a guy like buy tires. Basically, he wanted to be involved in the sport somehow. So one of his friends that he was riding around with over here in Whittier, he was going out to the track, and he was racing up at Willow Springs Raceway, about 2 hours outside of here, and he just started buying tires for him. He just wanted to be a part of it somehow. And then after a little while, he's like, if I'm buying tires already for this guy, why don't I just go do it myself,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So that's how he got into racing, and he ended up excelling. I think he pretty much excels at anything he does. But
really?
My dad is I can't say enough good things about him, but he got into racing and just started doing really well. And he kind of always floated that line of, like a really strong performing amateur rider / professional.
Right.
He rode for some really good teams, and but at the same time he had a family at home, so he just got married. They had my sister and me a couple years after that, so he was a family man, and he worked in construction providing for the family, so he could commit a pretty good amount of his attention to racing, but it was never like that 100% that he would have needed to make a full career out of it. So
for sure
he did that, and he never got me into motorcycles as a kid. He would have kids. He would see kids coming out with their dads to the track, and having, broken arm, broken leg, something like that. And he just didn't want that for me. So he's like, when you're old enough to ride an XR100, which was my first motorcycle, he's like, when you can fit on that, you can ride a motorcycle.
It's a solid bike. My family had one too.
Yeah, so that was the first bike, and I think I was 12 years old at the time. So I hadn't ridden a motorcycle up until that point, and
wow.
He got that for me and threw me out in the desert, and I'll forever remember that day, as all of a sudden just something clicked. And a couple months after that, we converted it into a little road race bike, and went road racing on little go-kart tracks, basically.
Really?
Yeah, and it just kind of went from there. By that time, so my dad retired probably around, might have been 2001.
From racing.
Basically, my mom said, you gotta be at home for all this stuff.
Right.
Like the kids are getting older, stuff like that. So
for sure. A lot of traveling, I imagine.
Yeah. So the last, kind of couple years of his career, he did some AMA pro racing. So traveling the country, in a class called Pro Thunder. He rode for Triumph one year, and he rode for Buell.
Really?
For the year after that. And that was kind of signed off. He was getting to a point where, obviously he wasn't going to go any further than that. And again, providing for the families, he's got to come home on and go to work on Monday. So,
right.
So at that point, by the time he got me into it, he was kind of semi-retired, as much as a a motorcyclist can retire. Like, you're always kind of hooked to it in some way.
Totally.
But got me into it, and I think the reason why I stuck with it is because he wasn't training me to be some pro athlete or anything like that. Like, my dad, he was literally just making me a better person through motorcycles. Like, he was helping me understand life and the world.
So he wasn't, I mean, any kind of sport. I think there's always that dad that wants to live his dream through his kid.
Yeah.
So that was not your dad.
No, I feel like my dad, he lived his dreams. Like, he did, he reached, a point where, he was happy with his career and he felt like he accomplished a lot on a motorcycle. And he just wanted me to experience it. Like, the way he put it, he was like, I rode a motorcycle and it changed my life, and I happen to be really good at it.
Yeah.
So he's like, you're my blood. He's like, the chances of you really liking it and doing well at it are pretty high. So I want you to experience it. But it was definitely never, it wasn't that like motocross dad who's like standing in the corner, like yelling at the kid as he rides by, like, go here, do this. Like,
do laps.
Yeah. It wasn't that. It was just like, it was just something we did for fun together. Right. And he just wanted me to experience that part of life and grow through it. We didn't do ball sports. Like, I wasn't out like, getting life lessons on a football field on Friday nights. Like, that wasn't us. So we did that through motorcycles. So that kind of, like, I would say, dictated my career path a little bit. And it was just, motorcycles were just something I had a passion for.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I'm going to be a pro racer. It was just like, hey, I have a lot of fun, and this is what I want my life to be. So it was, yeah.
So okay. Your dad puts you on two wheels at 12.
Yep. Something
clicks. Is it 12, 13, 14? When is your first race?
So, yeah, it was probably about
and this is
it
road
might have
racing.
been 6 months later. Like, we had just got the bike, and we went to a local track where they were having a race. Kind of walked around. He kind of felt me out. He's like, "Is this something you want to do?" I was like, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
So he kind of built that bike a little bit into a little road racer. So must have been 12. Yeah, I don't think I'd reached 13 yet, because I rode those little bikes for about a year until he got me onto a big bike. And
big bike meaning
big
what?
bike. It was, of all things, it's called a Honda, and this is how weird my dad was. It's called a VT 500 Ascot.
Okay. A single cylinder?
Sorry, no, it was the FT 500, which was the single. It was the single cylinder 500, but this like old motorcycle that like most kids, when they come up, their dad buys them like this 125cc, which has like this amazing chassis and just like doesn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And this was my dad's thinking, was like, he just wanted me to ride all these weird motorcycles just to grow and understand like what a motorcycle's doing. Like, he was just trying to make me a better rider,
right,
rather than like go out and go as fast as you can.
He kind of on purpose didn't give you the best thing possible.
Absolutely.
To kind of
Yeah,
for sure.
So super cool story there. Yeah, it was a guy who kind of recognized my dad's name through racing and stuff, had this bike on Craigslist. My dad knew I was going to be kind of making that step up in a couple months or a year. So this guy had cancer, and the outlook wasn't too good, and he kind of understood what my dad was trying to do and get me on the bike, and he gave this bike to my dad for free.
Dude, that's
so
I love stories like that, dude. It's just like a feel good, like forever. Whoever story you tell that to is a feel good story.
Yeah, so it was a cool connection to that and getting on the bike, and it really drove home the fact of like, we're just doing this because we're passionate about it, and we're not out to set the world on fire or anything like that. Like, we're just going out and learning and like enjoying this community. Like, the best thing about motorcycling is this huge sense of community, and just
totally.
We're all enthusiasts, right? So
you pull up, you call me, you're like, "Hey, I'm outside."
Yep.
I walk outside, I go, "What's up, dude?" Shake your hand, and then we geek out for 5 minutes on the bike you pulled up on.
Yeah.
And I've never met you in your life. And it's like, "Oh, dude, I love the Africa Twin. Oh my gosh, it's a great bike." Like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, that's motorcycles, right? And
I love it.
I guess that's some people with like football, right? Like, if you go to like, I don't know, a Buffalo Wild Wings on a Sunday, and there's like some dude that wants to talk football, like, you like football, there's a guaranteed chance that you're gonna like connect with someone who likes to talk football. So I think it's unique to what we do.
For sure. For sure. No. And for those of you that are listening, I'm kind of trying to structure this because I get it. I'm trying to not get into the nuts and bolts of things too gnarly.
Yep.
For the people that are listening, because he does have a very interesting career, whether you're into motorcycles or not. So we're going to phase into that. And then before we, all my buddies that do, are really into bikes, like Vince Silva that are listening. Shout out to him. So, okay. So you raced for 7 years, I think is what I read on Google.
Yeah, probably so. Basically 14 to 21. Yeah, 7 years. Good at math.
14 to 20 years. Well,
Yeah.
it said 7. I didn't know it ended
Yeah,
at 21.
that's 7. Yeah, I told you not to talk about math during this podcast.
Right, yeah, he definitely did. So, okay, so 7 years you're racing. So that means you graduate. When you graduate high school, are you still, okay, hey, I'm going to race still, and I'm also going to get into motorcycle career? You know what I mean? Or where was that line of, because it's obvious, I mean, it's the obvious, it's kind of, you knew that you weren't going to pursue racing as a career, right? Or were you still hooked on that?
I think deep down I knew that it probably wasn't it wasn't going to work out. I mean, I kind of had there were options. I think if I would have really pursued it, but I think I recognized my personality and my approach to racing. I kind of knew that a professional career wasn't going to work out.
Yeah.
It's kind of that awkward stage in life.
Yeah.
Definitely trying to figure life out. At that time I had a lot going on in my personal life with family stuff. So it was like graduated high school and just kind of collapsed a little bit. Like going to school, like just signed up to Fullerton College just because I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew my parents wanted me to go to college and,
right. No, for sure.
But yeah, kind of, stuff started happening in the personal life and just wasn't doing well in school, to say the least.
Really?
Like beyond bad, which will definitely not a moment I'm proud of, but kind of shaped the direction of my future. I was like, at some point my dad came to me and I was kind of tapering off at the racing at some point. Like mentally I just checked out on everything. And my dad's like, all right, you got to get this together. Like figure out what you're doing. So committed to school, actually got my GPA up to a point that was like acceptable and was like, all right, I'm in this, and
yeah.
Just one day I got a phone call from my dad. I was actually at work. I worked at a motorcycle dealership, which I think you're familiar with, which was Lobart and Underwood at the time.
Yep.
Moto United now. And I remember it to this day. I was sitting at the parts desk, get a call from my dad, and he's like, hey, I got a phone call about there's a position opening up at this magazine called Sport Rider. And, your name's getting tossed around. And I think this is something you should really go for.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, well, I don't read magazines, but I do like motorcycles.
Right.
Like, okay. He's like, and I remember it. He was like, this is something that you go all in. Like this would be your life. Like if this is what you want to do,
right,
jump on it, do it. So,
dude, your dad sounds awesome. Like,
dude, my dad is my hero.
That is so sick, dude.
He is.
That's cool, man. That's
yeah,
really cool.
Absolutely. So I had never written I didn't have like a sample writing, nothing like that. I went into this job just totally blind. But yeah, I sent in a resume to be an editor at Sport Rider magazine.
From parts counter, an amateur racer, and then all of a sudden, your dad of all people, it's kind of the opposite for me situation. So it's totally interesting that your dad's like, hey, why don't you take a risk at this, motorcycle magazine? That's super awesome.
In so many words, he was like, forget the school thing right now. Go do this.
Yeah. Dude, that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
What an interesting story.
Yeah. I think it's unique if nothing else, right? So,
yeah, for sure.
I feel fortunate for that, and that led into a career. I think it spans 7 years at magazines.
So you send that resume into Sport Rider. How quickly do you get in?
It was probably honestly 2 or 3 months, and to be honest, I almost didn't get in.
Really?
Yeah, so they had a guy who was already kind of working for the magazine in like a test role, and they actually were going to hire him. And I think the story goes it was a day or two before he was supposed to start, and he like called up the editor of the magazine and was like, hey, like my wife says we're doing this other thing. I think they were like moving or something. Like
really?
She's doing this. Like I can't accept the position. So then I got the call.
You got the call.
Yeah,
hey,
it was
those details. when you're meeting the in-laws, those details, you were the number one pick the whole way through.
Oh, well, absolutely. I don't tell many people
Yeah.
that. Now I've just
It's
told
like a
everyone.
guy-
I was not number one pick. It
changed
stings
his
a little
mind
bit.
2 days before,
Yeah.
and then I got picked.
I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, though. So like, I almost like the fact that I wasn't guaranteed that position, like it almost didn't work out. Like I guess makes me appreciate it a little
Yeah.
bit more, right? Like
It's more
it could've-
tangible.
It could have gone a way different direction, like
Mm-hmm.
had that not worked out. So
So okay, so Sport Rider, for anybody that's listening, is all road bikes. It's all obviously sport bikes, which are the full fairing. A lot of people call them crotch rockets, whatever you want to call it, the super high-strung race bikes of the street, right?
yes,
So you got in, which was right up your alley as a racer. You got in first day. You show up. What's the first day? What do they have you doing?
dude. So there's this thing every year every year they do it called EICMA, which is when all the manufacturers release new models.
Yep.
And I started at EICMA.
Okay.
And so they were like, there is 15 new bikes that need to get covered. And I was like, well, I don't really know how to write. And I literally I sat down at a desk and I just like went through everything. It's like EICMA is the busiest time of the year for the motorcycle industry. For
You're
sure.
writing all the new changes.
Yeah.
It's more of like a news thing
Yeah.
at that
So
point.
I sat down at this computer and I just faked it till I made it, man.
Really?
I just, dude, I still look back at that first magazine that I contributed to. You know, I had a couple stories in there, and I'm like, how did I do that? You know, because I went into the interview for this job, and they were like, do you have like samples of writing? And I was like, I don't. Like, I obviously I wrote essays in school here or there, but like
Right.
I don't have anything. So they like sent me away and they were like, go back and write 1,000-word review on a product
Hmm.
and email that to us and we'll
Interesting.
go over it.
That's cool that
So,
they
like-
didn't just write you off.
Yeah.
They gave you another shot.
Yeah,
That's cool.
absolutely. So, no, I'm not a trained writer or anything like that. I didn't go to school for that. I didn't think about it growing up. I just learned, right? I just,
Yeah.
like I said, faked
For
it till I
sure.
made it. Just,
Yeah. One day at a time.
yeah,
That's cool, man.
yeah.
So okay, so looking back, again, this is off of Google, these little bullet
Okay,
points.
all
But you had 5 years at Sport Rider.
Yes.
Okay, so you're starting. You faked it till you make it. At what point were you kind of going over the hill and said maybe? Because I know you went to Cycle World next,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of it is a huge, broad spectrum of basically all motorcycles,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, where were you at that you kind of thought, maybe I should broaden my horizons. Maybe I should branch away from the sport bikes a little bit. And there's sport bikes at Cycle World. You know what I mean? It's everything.
Yeah.
But what kind of garnished that decision? Do you think? You know what I mean? Was it just kind of the grass is always greener, or were you starting to get into other bikes?
No, I mean, it was a couple things. I mean, obviously from a business perspective, and I try to live my life looking at like 5-year plans.
Yeah.
And I think I saw the direction of Sport Rider. It was a small magazine, and I knew resources were always going to be limited, and
Mm-hmm.
if anything's ever going to be on the chopping block, it would be that. And I kind of looked at that, and I felt like, how do I set myself up for the future?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a creature of habit, and change terrifies me. So
Dude.
like the idea of moving over from something that I did for 5 years. Fortunately, they were like in the same office, so we were in the same publishing company. And literally, when I changed jobs, I moved one desk over or something, So like it was baby steps for me, and like they made it easy, I guess. But
A big jump.
yeah,
It's a big jump.
it was a Bradley sized jump for sure. But
That's funny.
yeah, I just I was trying to look at my future, and kind of do my best to set myself up for the long run. Want to stay in the industry, but just
For sure.
see how to do that. And at the same, so there was that aspect, and the other aspect of, dude, I love anything with two wheels and a motor. Like,
Totally.
and I didn't want to be confined to sport bikes, right? Like, I moved over and I was able to ride cruisers, adventure bikes. I rode a snow bike, like stuff
Dude.
that I just would have never had the chance to do at Sport Rider. So it was
Totally.
opened a lot of doors for that. And I think also just Cycle World being a larger magazine, publication, associating myself with that and putting my name to that, I knew it would open more doors
Mhm.
in the future,
Totally.
on manufacturer side and things
Just
like that.
Building that resume and everything.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
that. Dude,
Yeah,
that's
that was it. So that was my thought process, and it worked out. So
Dude, I would literally go somewhere. Like I was just talking to him. He was actually a roommate at this girl that I kind of know through a friend, And his name was on this wall of this huge list of people that hang
Don't
out.
list the wall. Don't what the list was.
Yeah, I'm not gonna list the wall.
Okay, cool.
But his name was there, and I would literally see something like that. Like I would just hear your name, and then the next day I would like check Cycle World for a new review, and there'd be, the sport bike shootout or something like that. It's like, dude, this guy is living the dream, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a lot of hard work, and I know there's a lot more to it, but kudos, dude. That's really cool.
It absolutely was the dream job. I miss it every day for sure.
Really?
I love what I do now, and I think like we talked about earlier before the podcast started, it was a step up. But I mean, fun factor at the magazines is just unlimited. Just unlimited.
Okay, what is the biggest Benny of work? I mean, obviously you got to ride a lot of things, right? You got to ride a lot. What were some of the how do I put it? What were a few? Because you worked there for 2 years, Cycle World.
Yes.
What were some of the big that's on the all-star team of sweet bikes the last couple of years? You know what I mean? Some that stick out that kind of stay with you.
Bikes or events or?
I would say, I mean either or. What are some of the most memorable things? Because I know you get to travel in, what was it, Qatar or something like that. You got to ride the new Super Duke.
Yep. Yeah, I did get to do that. I mean, there's the list really does go on. There was this time, so we did a.
I love how you lean back and you're just
dude, I just
geez, you kind of coil up.
these.
Yeah, oh geez, where do I begin?
I mean,
my goodness.
I also don't like being that guy that I don't want to talk about. This is so I got to do this, and they're just experiences, and I feel very fortunate. But
you're a humble man, but indulge me.
So there was this. They did a ride event for the KTM 1290 Super Adventure R.
Oh yeah.
In Peru.
That's a sweet bike.
And so they flew us down to Peru, and they basically drove us down into the middle of the desert out there. And a beautiful resort, on the water. I mean, just loving life. Everything's great.
All paid for.
Yeah. So the manufacturer sets everything up. They set up this experience, and then they bring you in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, so the next day we're with, God, I'm going to draw a blank on his name right now just because I'm not an off-road guy. I think it's Chris Birch. Just this incredible rider.
One of their factory dudes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's raced a car, all that stuff. Just a gnarly guy.
Right.
And there's a group of 3 of us, which is an awesome part about the job. He's you're always riding with buddies.
That's cool.
It's just you and your buddies out riding. So we get out into these sand dunes in the middle of the Peru, and he pulls up to the side of the road, and he's points out into the open desert, and he's just I'm gonna cut out there. Don't worry about following me. You'll see my dust. Just go have fun.
That's sweet.
And so this group of 4 with him leading, it's just all our buddies, and we're just cutting through the middle of the Peruvian desert in the middle of nowhere on this motorcycle with 160 horsepower, knobbies on it, and you're just
the best that manufacturer has to offer.
Yeah, and you're just this is the greatest day of life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean there's a lot of fantastic experiences, but something about being out there in the middle of nowhere with your friends riding motorcycles.
That's cool.
That, and that's what motorcycling is. You don't have to have that job. That's the best part about it. You don't have to be an editor to go do that. I have an Africa Twin and go out play in the middle of the desert with my friends whenever. But that's motorcycling, and that was the pinnacle of it for sure.
Yeah.
But that was a freaking beautiful experience, man.
Dude, that's sweet, dude.
Cutting through dunes, just your buddies, you're just just going back and forth and weaving across each other, and it was
on
good.
this $25,000 motorcycle or whatever. Yeah. Those are sweet, dude. I'm really jealous. All right, so moving on. Okay, so you said, you have this no shortage. I'm glad you told that story. You have no shortage of fun experiences, and then you decide to get out of the magazines, right?
Yeah.
Another change, but I think it's probably gonna be a bigger one this time.
Yeah.
From what I've read.
Yes.
So now you're not in a magazine. You're in the media side of things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Explain. Well, for what company do you work for now?
So I work for a company called Jana Media.
Okay.
So
only reason why I asked because I had no clue how to pronounce it.
Yeah. Oh man, try spelling like that's our email address and like just the spelling on it. It's like J. So, but yeah. So I work for this agency, and it was a deal where I hadn't actually thought about leaving the magazines. You know, again, looking at the future and kind of understanding the industry and the way it was going. I knew I wanted to do something at some point, but I didn't know what. And just one day I got a text from who now is my boss, you know, Chris Johnham, and he said, "Hey, you got a minute to talk?" And I said, "Oh God, what did I do?" You know, like,
Right.
and just picked up the phone, and he told me he was working on working with Honda, and you know, for a PR agency role, and that he was gonna need help,
Right.
you know, and it was the first thing like, okay, maybe this is a sign, you know, maybe this is
Right.
the time. So he had a lot of faith in me, obviously, because it was, you know, a role that I hadn't, had no concept of what I was doing. It was the exact opposite of what. So basically, before I would attend these events, right, as an editor, and now I would be the one putting these events on.
Right.
So while I understood kind of what the role meant, I didn't know what I was doing. So he had a lot of faith in me, and he brought me on.
So you understood, okay, this is the goal, because I've been on the other side of it before, but I
Yeah.
have no clue how to make it happen.
Exactly.
Totally. Dude, that's exciting.
Yeah, so honestly, it was one of those, it was that point in my life where like I felt like I needed to challenge myself and grow,
Yeah.
right? And like just take myself out of a comfort zone. Like, okay, I know how to write stories, I know how to review motorcycles, but like I am horrible at communication, I'm horrible at this. Like, let's take a job where that's like the
main.
primary, yeah.
Yeah.
And just like I'm gonna have to learn how to do it, right? I'm gonna have to learn how to grow into this. So it was, just.
How long you been with that company now?
Little over a year.
That's cool.
Yeah, still pretty fresh, still learning on a daily basis.
That's awesome. Dude, once you stop learning, man, it's hard to stay motivated. For me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I feel like, although I do feel like when you say you're not learning, then you're not looking for it. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you have to recognize, I think, when you've kind of either plateaued or when you feel like you're getting comfortable. Be like, all right, I got to do something to challenge myself. Like I got to do something different. I got to learn how to grow out of this, right?
Totally. Have you ever experienced one of the, I mean, the example I've always heard is like the guy that loves to surf is now going to teach people how to surf, and then 2 months later he hates it because now he's just like dealing with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is it one of those moments where it's like, oh, dude, like it's you become jaded naturally because you're riding all the best stuff and you ride every day and stuff like that. Is it easy, or have you? I mean, it's like, dude, passion train ahead. Like you're still 100% into it. You know what I mean?
Anything motorcycles.
It's just,
Like, I feel like that's something for everyone. Everyone has that thing, right?
for sure.
Like, whatever it is. And I hope people find that, right? Like that's the hope in life. If you do find that thing that you're passionate about, but dude, if it's again, 2 wheels and a motor, like I love it to death, man. Whatever, if anything revolves around that. So no, I mean, I cannot be more excited to kind of just be in the industry.
Dude, that's sick.
That's, yeah. You do hope you find that, right? And like, I hope, you know, anyone who sits in a cubicle selling, you know, life insurance or something, like, I hope they have something outside of that. Like, I don't know. I hope you have to find that passion, right?
sure.
Like you have to find that thing you love. And I feel very fortunate that I have, and that I've been able to make a career out of it. You know, there's obviously a lot of work in anything, and anything becomes a job. I think we talked about that earlier. Like,
yeah, for sure.
anything becomes work.
Yeah,
But
I feel that.
You still have better days at work when you're doing something you love.
Dude, powerful words. Powerful words. What do you think? The industry, like, okay, so the industry, and this is kind of for my casual listeners, we're going to kind of gear into more specific stuff, but the industry now for the street is changing. You know, like the 1990s was all about sport bikes. You know what I mean? And now, I mean, how many brand new sport bikes do you see outside of like if you go up in the canyons? You know what I mean?
It's tough, man. It's dictated by the consumer. I mean, the biggest struggle we've had the last couple of years in the industry is that the younger audience, the people who would be into sport bikes, like they didn't have the jobs, they didn't have the money to go out and buy. You know, motorcycles are getting more expensive. It's getting more, you know, financing is more and more challenging, right? But like, so the people who have money and that want to go buy motorcycles, it's like an older demographic.
Yeah.
So it's the guys who maybe rode sport bikes throughout the 90s or their whole life, right? And now they've gotten to a point where it's like they don't want to be hunched over a motorcycle
Right.
like that, and their back's hurting by the time they get to the their rest stop or whatever. So these are the guys going and buying like naked bikes, so like
Right.
or like upright handlebar, like just something that's more
Super
little bit more
fast,
comfortable, yeah,
but more sensible.
performance oriented, or adventure bikes.
Right.
Which again is it's all about that kind of comfort, and you still kind of have some performance to it. So that they've really dictated the market. The industry as a whole has been really good about bringing in new product. Like all the small displacement stuff, like especially at Honda. I'll talk Honda because I know the lineup pretty well, but like Honda a couple years ago like didn't have little bikes,
Yeah.
right? They had like a Rebel 250,
Right.
and like you either got on that or you like stepped up to a CBR 600.
Right.
And now, I mean, there's just huge assortment. You have all these options of little bikes ranging from like, from the Grom, little 125cc Grom that I think is awesome.
Those are so much fun.
Dude, I love them.
It's a smile machine.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely. Up to, 300s and 500s and 650s and things like that are super user friendly. So I think the industry has been really good about bringing out product. It's just about getting the younger demographic into it,
Right.
And there's so much. I get the motorcycles are dangerous and all those, those things. But we just gotta get people on it, because the second you ride a motorcycle,
You're hooked.
you're hooked, and you learn how to adapt to any of the risks or anything like that. Like there's a way to make motorcycling not dangerous.
Right. For sure.
You just have to be smart and
Yeah. No, for sure. You have to just be sensible. You can make anything dangerous, is what I like to tell people.
That's a good point.
But no, for sure, dude. It's one of those things. I started riding on the street when I was 18, and I like every friend, every family outing you would go over, and they had already heard, or you would it would come up naturally because it's what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And you like the mom that was there or whatever, you would just see them like, you're riding.
That's dangerous.
You're gonna die. You know what I mean? I'm like,
that's a real slippery slope there.
Like it's legit. I mean, it's an exaggeration, but not by much.
Yeah.
I'm sure you
No,
felt it, dude. Especially
yeah.
as a racer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They're like, and
Yeah,
then they
people
go
who
watch.
don't get it, yeah.
Then they go watch Price is Right. But
Life is dangerous is what my dad always taught me. Like,
that's a good point.
I could be in a bus, which how many news reports have you seen of bus turns over and kills X amount? Like,
yeah, for sure.
I'd rather do what I love.
Dude, there's no
Right,
better.
so-
There's no better way to get through LA than on. It solves the traffic problem in LA.
It does.
Like it's not even like, oh, it helped. Like it solves it.
Yeah.
I take a bike every day to work. Right now I'm going all the way across LA to Inglewood.
Yep.
I get 4 times the gas mileage in my truck.
Yeah.
Granted,
Yeah.
a truck has a V10, but that's small details.
And the air
Small
conditioning
details.
thing. That's the only thing.
Yeah. This last month in LA sucked. Like
Yeah.
just sweating.
Just
But
like, this is gonna be worth it in the end. It is.
dude, 4 times the gas money. Insurance is half the cost. It's fun, and I'm telling you, it's worth it.
I mean, motorcycles open up your world, right? Like,
It's like a whole other dimension of the road.
well, yeah, it's like, if I wake up on a Saturday or something and I'm like, oh, I'd love to go out to this beach out in like Malibu or something, right? Like, it'd be so
Mhm.
cool. Like, I'm not gonna drive my car out there.
Right.
Kidding me? So like, if I just had a car, like, car's gonna stay parked and I'm gonna sit in my house all day.
Right.
But oh, hey, I got the bike. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna do that, right? Like, it opens the door to so many more things and activities, and it opens up the world for you, I think. And
No, for
I'm
sure.
bummed that people don't get to experience that, man. Like, people who don't ride motorcycles,
I don't know how
there's
they
this
do
whole
it.
world out there.
I know, dude.
There's this whole world.
Dude, I totally get you. And you tell them like, oh, dude, I'll teach you everything. Like whatever. My buddy's got a little TTR 120 or whatever. Like, just come out and I'll teach you how to ride.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's dangerous though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh my
So-
gosh.
I think one of one of the times where I really realized that, so I had Grom. So I did this crazy, kind of silly story at the time for Cycle World about off-road riding Groms.
Oh, dude, I think I saw that.
So it was this like silly idea, and it like started as one thing and turned into another, as stories almost always do. But like, long story short, I ended up having 2 Groms at the house with these like dual sport tires.
Mm-hmm.
They're like basically a street tire with like a millimeter of knob to it.
Right. And for people that don't know, you're maxing at what, 50? 52,
Yeah, no,
53?
I mean, downhill you're doing a lot better than that.
Downhill,
yeah,
wind on your
you
side.
You might do like 60, 62 or something.
Yeah.
Like
Pinned.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so I had these at the house, and this was when I was living with my buddy, and so like we woke up one morning and we're like, dude, let's take the Gromps out to El Mirage, which is a kind of small local like riding area and like dry lake bed, just like silly nothing. It's an hour drive or something. And we like picked the bikes up. Like we didn't have a ramp at the house. We picked the bikes up, loaded them in the truck. We didn't have to take fuel jugs. We just like filled the bikes up in the back of the truck when we like rolled through the gas station because they'll like run for 2 years on a tank of gas.
Right.
And we like,
It's true.
we had like work boots, like little jackets, but like not like full riding gear. Like it was just like, let's go out there. We had helmets and dirt bike gloves, right? So like bare minimum. Bare minimum. And we like rolled out to the desert and we literally pick them out of the truck, and we go rip around the desert for 2 hours on these like very inexpensive small displacement
That'll run
basic
forever.
Yeah. And like we were literally laughing,
Oh, dude.
like the biggest ear to ear grin, laughing so hard. It was like the most fun I've had, and it's just like in its simplest form. Like
I love how 10 minutes ago you told me, dude, we were in Peru on this full paid bitchin' like hotel on the water on these $20,000 bikes, and they have 160 horsepower, which people that don't ride is a ton for two wheels. 160 horsepower, it's all these gizmos, electronics, and you're just going through the dunes. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, hey, we got these like $4,000 bikes that like can barely go 50, and they're like super small. You can just like pick them up out of the truck, and we can't stop smiling. I love that. You know what I mean? There's, I mean, granted, like, look at, if you're gonna give me one, you know what I mean?
You'll take the KTM 1290. No, but like that's
the essence,
man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's honestly what motorcycling started as, really, right? Like it was these ways of kind of disconnecting and just a small, like, go out and have fun. Like, especially like we work on so many Honda projects this year with the new Honda Monkey, which is Grom based, you know, kind of retro styling. And you look at back in when Honda first started bringing these bikes over, and it was like just kids going out and riding. Like they brought these things over, and with the Super Cub, it was, you know, like college students just getting around town, but like
it
was just
like inexpensive, like no bullshit.
Yeah, like, just like get out and go have some fun, or like get around town easier. Like
totally,
it didn't have to be high horsepower like this, that, and all every technology. It's just like and I think this is actually probably why motorcycles are such a hit. Like you feel everything when you're on it, right?
Yeah,
like you're in the elements. You feel the wind. You feel everything. You're engaged,
totally.
Right? So like, and that's what motorcycling is. And like, you don't need 160 horsepower to do that.
Right.
Like you're just moving and you feel everything.
Wind on your face. You can smell everything.
Yeah. And
that's the way I try to explain it to, you know, like, I'm not trying to be like sexist, but it's happened the most with women from my experience when they're, you know, that you try to explain it to them. I go, imagine riding through the sequoias and you can just smell the trees. You see an animal, it's right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything is times 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You mean like versus being in a car and like having
being
the windows rolled up and like the air conditioning, the music turned on. You're like
cruising down the street in a Chrysler LeBaron versus on your Honda Africa Twin, which is a sweet bike, dude. Yeah. Sweet bike. But no, for sure. I totally agree. And we need to get more people on bikes.
That's the thing. It's like, and I guess that's maybe was the point of the story. It's like it doesn't take much.
Yeah,
right?
No.
Like,
like 30 years ago, everybody had the mini bike in the backyard.
Yeah.
That like all the neighborhood kids would just put on from time to time. That's not like that anymore.
No, and like it doesn't mean you have to like go and buy a motorcycle and commute on it every day and like be a motorcyclist. Like just support it and understand it. I think once you've ridden a bike and you kind of get it, then you're more supportive of the industry as a whole. Like then when your, you know, nephew comes over and is like, hey, like I'm riding a motorcycle now. You're not like, oh, those are death traps. So you're like,
right.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. That's cool. Like I wish people understood that more, right?
I get that. So okay, last thing,
so
but
love motorcycles, people love motorcycles.
Love them. I think is it the first time you looked in the camera? The first real look, first.
Yeah,
it's a
big
big moment.
Keep going now.
Dude, I'm gonna just have that on replay, and it's gonna be an Instagram post. Just like, no, but okay. So last but certainly not least, Do you have to be a part of, a sport rider or a cycle world? Do you have to be a big part of that in order to provide um, testing and get those media, those media bikes, or can you freelance that? I'm trying to relate this as professionally as possible back to my talents of being able to get press bikes in my garage so that I can provide my intellect
I see
and
where
passion.
this is going. No,
I understand everybody and their brother probably tries to ask you this. Like,
no, it's I think it's with anything where if you want it bad enough and you kind of continue to go work for that, you can set yourself up to a point, right? Like like back in the day, it was people who literally they wanted to be featured in the magazine, so they'd write stories every month. Like none of them would get published, but like you wrote and you wrote and you wrote until one time the editor was like, "Man, I've got this hole in the magazine. Like, oh hey, here's so and so's story." That's how it's always kind of been. I think most people don't want something that bad, right? Like they say they do, but they're not willing to like do whatever.
There's that small extra level at the top.
Yeah,
that, the cream rises to.
Right. But anymore, like the industry and publishing has changed so much since social media and YouTube and things like that, streaming services, blogs. Anymore actually, like when we sit down and do plan an event, we're like, okay, who can we invite out to this event who's going to cover the motorcycle and introduce this to, put it in front of the right eyeballs.
Right. What are they going to do for me?
And it's not so much that. I mean, we're trying to spread a message, right? Like if we host an event, the whole point is to like spread this message on the bike. Like tell the story of the bike, tell the story of how it performs, so that hopefully, someone reads that or hears that and says, I want to go buy that bike.
Yeah.
Right? Like I love everything that bike is.
What's the tone that you're trying to deliver?
Yeah.
Is that kind of right?
I mean, so we always like at our agency we always talk it's stories. Like every bike has its story, and you're trying to tell that story through through the content you create, so through the words in a press release or anything like that in the events.
Right.
So it's a story, and you're hoping that story makes it all the way through to the consumer.
Right.
Right, like through the media and into the consumer, so they understand like that's something I connect with.
Right.
And I want that. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the industry has changed so much that like when we do this event, we look at YouTube guys, guys who are moto vloggers who literally just have a GoPro on their helmet and film, right? Because that's so huge now. It's they're influencers, and I think I don't like that term, and I know a lot of people dislike that term within the industry, but like they are influencing purchase decisions, right? So you bring them out, and
they're there, which is big enough. You know what I mean? Whether you agree with them or
yeah, right. Yeah, they have an audience. So
right.
I guess it's the right word for it. But anyone who has an audience, and you build that audience up, right? We don't invite someone, who's got a YouTube thing with 500 views. Right. Like it's I'm sorry, but it's just that doesn't work. It's not like mutually beneficial.
Right. No, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, if people on social media and groups that have an audience, and hey, come out. You got to be a decent human being. We got to like hang out with you. Your message has to be kind of right. And but yeah, it's now more than ever. There's chances for people to come in, try product for sure.
Right.
You got to want it. That's the thing. Like I said, I mean, like there's always that little extra level of commitment. There's a difference of people that want to go ride motorcycles and who are like willing to put in that work to like be professional and come to an event and reach out. So, send an email to the press department. Hey, I would love to be a part of one of your future events. Like, here's what I can deliver. Like, be professional about it. Like, write out, big document that says, hey, here's my deliverables. Here's what I can do. Like, things like that. And most people don't take that step.
Yeah.
Right? And that's anything in life, right? Like,
yeah, I feel
people want stuff. Like, I'd love to be in super good shape, but like, I don't have that like little thing missing of like
I feel
that extra commitment level of.
Second, something else comes up. The gym is the first thing to get dropped off the list of to-dos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, man, I'm just gonna go tomorrow.
Yeah. Like,
and that's like, yeah, most people do that tomorrow.
Yeah. I totally get
it's
that.
me in a lot of ways. So, I mean, I'm not bashing on those people. Like, it's hard to overcome that, but.
Dude, I totally get it. Is there anything you want to bring up before we end this? It's been a pleasure so far.
I don't know. I feel like I could push the motorcycle thing all day long, but I don't know. Is there anything we're supposed to like talk that's not motorcycles? Is there like people? I don't want to like people feel like.
No, dude.
Listen to a whole motorcycle podcast.
Everyone has been.
Motorcycle.
Everyone's different. The last one I did was all about refugees.
Okay.
So these are super.
Variety is the spice of life.
Yeah, exactly. It's all different.
Um.
Well, okay. What was there a bike that just like under delivered? And I get it.
Oh God.
I get it. I mean, it's probably a lot, huh?
Yeah. There certainly is.
You know, you get this big thing, and like you were talking about, this is a story that's trying to deliver. And is there that pressure as like when you're writing for magazines of like, hey, as a manufacturer, you're trying to deliver this story, and the media and everything like that, and you put this big, huge thing on, which I'm sure costs a ton of money, and then it's like, dude, I didn't like this bike, but how do is there that pressure of like, well, you can't write too negatively about it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the product. I mean, I think all you can do, I mean, your whole goal is to be honest, right? Like, because the way I looked at it too is like, if I write a positive review on something, it's basically me saying, this is a good bike, you should go buy this bike, right? And you're gonna go spend your money, and you're gonna go get this thing, and then you're gonna be unhappy because it is a poor performing motorcycle, and then you're unhappy, so you don't ride it,
right?
And then like you're no longer a motorcyclist at that point, right? Like your bike sits in the back corner of the garage and like collects dust, and like you're not supporting the industry. You're not buying tires. You're not buying oils. Like you're not.
Right.
That does the industry no good.
And then you think that's a good bike. I don't want any bike now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's how I always looked at writing stories, and like, so if a bike was good, like I think it came out. Like I always. In the way I wrote the story, you're more excited, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah, you're passionate about it.
Yeah, this thing is awesome. Like, you need to go get one of these.
Yeah.
And then the other one's just kind of like, well, maybe not.
It does this and it does this.
Yeah, but so I don't know. I think there were those bikes where like, I don't know. I love the idea of like someone going and getting a bike like a Suzuki GSX-R 1000, which isn't anymore the most popular bike out. And I wish I saw more on the road, but like, the bike's so good.
Yeah.
I just want people to go buy that bike, because they go buy that bike and they go to a track day, and they're gonna have like the greatest time ever. Like, it's such a user friendly, really strong performing motorcycle. Like, they're gonna have the greatest time.
Yeah. You're not gonna be unhappy buying that bike.
Right.
Versus
other Italian motorcycles that
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's it's one of those things. I don't know. You try to weed the good and bad. You can't be this like super negative Nancy all the time. And, your job's to kind of pick things apart, and you don't want to come off as this is bad, but
right.
Try to sway you. I want someone to read the story and go buy a bike
and be open minded.
Yeah, and to have a good experience.
One thing I can tell that's coming across is that you're not a fanboy. The most obvious one is the guy that's all about Harley Davidson and won't ride anything else but Harley Davidson.
Yeah, and like just so super close minded. Like, no, this is. You write something else? Like
it sucks. Yeah.
And
Harley Davidsons I like Harley Davidson. There's a lot of cool bikes that they make. You know what I mean? Naturally. But I hate fanboys. Because they're not a motorcyclist. They're a brand fan.
Yeah. There's definitely those people. For sure. And there's other brands where you see that as well. But no, I think to be a motorcyclist, you're everything, right? Like, I don't ride cruisers on a day-to-day basis, but like I appreciate someone who does. I get that. It's cool to like cruise down PCH at sunset, on a Saturday afternoon. Like,
right, yeah.
Like, that's cool. Like, I get how you can have fun doing that.
Right.
I get how you can go blast through the desert on a dirt bike. Like, that's cool. Like, there's no right or wrong way to be a motorcyclist. So
totally. No, I get it.
Yeah, everything's cool in its own way. It's just like whatever speaks to you. So
whatever speaks to you. I think we'll end it on that, dude. Bradley Adams.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's fun to talk motorcycles. Cool to do this. Appreciate it. You got an awesome little setup here.
I know it's a sweet little setup in a corner of a bedroom. But
there's that. But do they know? Do they know what's behind?
That's been the running joke. If they don't, whatever. Nobody knows. Once I make it big, I'll be on the daily morning show, and I'll say, my first studio was actually in the corner of my bedroom. I've already thought about that conversation. That hasn't happened yet. I'm one of those.
One day.
I'm a dreamer. I'm a dreamer, Bradley. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. If you're on YouTube, we are out.
Cool.
Thanks, dude.
See you guys.